Thank you so much, and welcome to our July 9th meeting of the Leon County Board of County Commissioners. We hope that each of you enjoyed a great 4th of July weekend celebration. And so we're going to get started with our meeting today, and I will ask my Vice Chair, Commissioner Brian Welch, if he will introduce our invocator as well as lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am pleased to welcome today to our chambers Pastor Matt Hall. Matt, could you come up to the podium for us, please? Pastor Hall is going to be leading our invocation today. He is the pastor of Canopy Roads Baptist Church right there on Bannerman Road, right there in the heart of Bradfordville. Pastor Matt moved to Tallahassee, start Canopy Roads Church in July of 1996. He's joined by his wife, Terry, has 4 kids, Allison, Sarah, Emily, and Tim, 8 grandchildren. Congratulations on that. Canopy Roads Baptist Church held its first service in September of 1996 at Hawks Rise Elementary School before moving to its current location. So we want to thank you, Pastor Hall, for taking the time to come out here and leading our invocation as we open this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it very
much.
Yes, sir. Opportunity to be here. Thank you for the invitation. This is my first commission meeting, so I was expecting a much smaller crowd, so something must be really popular here tonight, so it's an honor to be here. Join me as we pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you because you are the creator. Everything that exists is because of your will. Lord, this whole world that we live in, our solar system, our galaxy, one of billions of other galaxies in our universe. Lord, what you've created is so massive, so enormous, so amazing, so complex, we can't wrap our mind around it. So we are humbled in your presence. Lord, that you would want to have a relationship with us is beyond understanding. So Lord, we thank you that not only are you the creator, but you sent your son Jesus to give his life for us so that we could have a relationship with you, so that we can call you Father, not just God. So we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come before you and, Lord, to intercede for these commissioners. We thank you, Lord, for the gifts that you've given them, for placing them in public office. We thank you, Lord, for the hard work that they invest. God, we just pray, as the Lord Jesus prayed, that your will will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, let your will be done in this commission as it is in heaven. Let your will be done in Leon County as it is in heaven. Let your will be done in the state of Florida as it is in heaven. Let your will be done in the United States as it is in heaven. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. For we know that in heaven, Lord, your perfect will is always done. So, Lord, that is what we seek. God, on behalf of these commissioners tonight, I just pray, Lord, that as James wrote in chapter 1, verse 5, he said, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of you who give to all people generously and beyond reproach. So, Lord, I pray you give them wisdom to make good decisions. Some of the decisions that they have to make, Lord, are sometimes contentious and complex. And I just pray that you would give them your divine wisdom to make those decisions. God, I also pray for their families. We thank you, Lord, that they're taking time to serve this community, and they have businesses or jobs, responsibilities in nonprofits, in churches. So God, I just pray that you would protect their families as they work so hard for you here. Let us not take for granted what they contribute of their time and energy to represent us. So God, we pray all of these things in the strong name of our Savior Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Pastor Hall, for the great, very appropriate invocation. And thank you, Commissioner Welch, for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Right now, I'd like to ask Commissioner Proctor if he would take the podium. He's going to be presenting 2 proclamations. The first one is recognizing Race Amity Day in Leon County. So if there are those here to accept the proclamation, please join Commissioner Proctor at the podium.
Are there others who are going to join us here with Race Amity? All right. Okay, good. Dr. Mitchum, we're very delighted that you're here today. I'm very delighted to represent our board and being the voice collectively for what we share and offer to you today. This proclamation reads, whereas the greatest asset of the United States of America lies in its diversity of cultures, races, ethnicities, and religions, which are the foundation of its strength, resilience, and creativity. And whereas throughout history, individuals and communities have demonstrated the power of amity and friendship across racial and cultural divides, contributing to the progress and enrichment of our nation. And whereas Race Amity Day is dedicated to fostering mutual understanding, respect, and collaboration among all racial, ethnic, and cultural groups, promoting the values of equality, inclusion, and unity. I say amen. And whereas the National Center for Race Amity and other organizations have been instrumental in promoting Race Amity Day as a time for reflection, celebration, and action to strengthen the bonds of friendship and collaboration across diverse communities. And whereas it is fitting and proper to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of all individuals who work tirelessly to advance the cause of racial amity and to strive towards a more inclusive and harmonious society. And whereas Leon County is committed to the principles of justice, equity, and inclusion, and recognizes the importance of fostering an environment where all residents can live, work, and thrive together in mutual respect and harmony. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Leon County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims June 9th, 2024 as Race Amity Day in Leon County and encourages all residents to observe this day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that promote friendship, understanding, and unity among all people. Be it further resolved that this proclamation serves as a testament to Leon County's ongoing commitment to fostering a community where diversity is celebrated and all individuals are valued and respected. Dr. Mitchum, I offer to you now the Board of County Commissioners proclamation, a date which June 9th, it's gone by, did I say June 9th? But of course, it was recognized on that date, and we had promised this proclamation to you. It's signed by all 7 commissioners. It's attested to by our county administrator. We say congratulations to you. Would you like to say a word? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. On behalf of the community and the Baha'i faith and all the interfaith communities that came together on June 9th, thank you so much to all of the commissioners for supporting the unity of community. It's very important, and I hope it's part of our DNA. We live in an amazing community, and we really came together that day. Thank you so much, Commissioner Proctor, for always supporting this effort, and all of you for supporting that. It makes us stronger. Our diversity is our strength. So thank you so much.
Okay. I see Dr. McCord has come. Dr. McCord, would you please come forward, please?
Yes,
Not parking. I know it was raining and all of that. This is Dr. Carrie McCord, leader of Baha'i Faith community. Dr. McCord, we have shared and offered proclamation from our board, this proclamation. And of course, on June 9th, you all had that wonderful celebration. We want you to know how much we share the values of race amity. And we would love for you to say a word, please.
Thank you. This is, by the way, Ruhia Bannister, who is the chairperson for Leon County Baha'i Community. I'm the chairperson for the Tallahassee Baha'i Community. And of course, you've met Dr. Michelle Mitchum, who served on the task force for the past few years that planned and developed the Race Amity Day Festival. And more than a festival, it's a time to get together and to create bonds of friendship. Bonds of friendship don't occur necessarily in these rooms. They occur to some extent as we see each other in the community, but they occur in our living rooms and in our kitchens and at our dining room tables. So what I suggest to all of you present is find people who have different experiences than you, that look different than you, and invite them to your home and have meaningful conversations about difficult subjects so that understanding, empathy, and love and appreciation can grow. This is an annual event, and we appreciate the support of the Leon County Commission in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any comments?
Wait. Carrie, don't be standing by me. Let me stand up. Dr. McCord is trying to stand by all the good-looking ladies and want me to stand by him.
I was trying to protect you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, Dr. Mitchum. We appreciate all that you all do each year to bring about unity and togetherness in our community. Thank you for being here.
All right, we're going to get you a park next year. Have your park. Give you my park. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I recognized for the?
Please.
Another. Okay. It's a great honor. I'm going to ask if Brother School Board Member Darrell Jones would please join me in the presentation. I also saw Keith, if you would come up, please. Keith. Ms. McCaskill, if you in the house, would you please come forward? McCaskill. Y'all, this is Miss O'Lean right here. And it just wouldn't be right for Darrell Jones, who has affirmed that he's had 1 or 2 meals at Miss O'Lean, not over 3 meals. And I know you have to run him out sometimes, so it just let him know you're closing. And because this goes to economic development, which these 2 gentlemen are distinguished themselves in representing our area, for generating economic development, they needed to be here with you, Ms. O'Lean. I know you went to Godby High School, and y'all Cougars thought y'all was all of that, but y'all all right. And the thing is, back in the day, y'all can't appreciate that, you know, boys on the other side of town didn't want boys on our side of town to talk to girls up there, you know, went to Godby. That's another discussion. Mrs. O'Lean, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. These words are not sufficient to say your meaning to that Corridor South Adams Street, morning after morning, week after week, you've persevered. And we thank you for your perseverance in all things. So we give to you this proclamation, recognizing in particular the wonderful way that you stood in the gap for families and feeding our community following the tornado. Whereas Leon County experienced devastating tornadoes on May 10th, 2024, which caused significant damage and hardship to many residents and businesses. And whereas during these trying times, the spirit of community and solidarity has been crucial in helping us overcome challenges and begin the process of rebuilding and recovery. Whereas Olene McCaskill, the esteemed owner of Olene's Cafe, has exemplified extraordinary kindness and generosity by providing meals to those affected by the tornadoes, ensuring that no one in our community went hungry. And whereas her tireless efforts and selfless dedication have not only provided much needed sustenance, but also comfort and hope to countless individuals and families during a time of crisis. And whereas Olene McCaskill's actions have embodied the very best of our community values, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to service and compassion. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Leon County Board of County Commissioners hereby extends its deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to Olene McCaskill for her remarkable contributions and steadfast support to the residents of Leon County during the aftermath of May 10th, 2024 tornadoes. Be it further resolved that this proclamation serves as a testament to Olene McCaskill's exemplary community spirit and is a lasting reminder of the positive impact one individual can have on the lives of many. Ms. McCaskill, I say to you that this proclamation is heartfelt. And in that time, in the aftermath of a tornado, there's a church song they sing, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." Let it shine. And we appreciate you allowing that light to shine. And all of these commissioners, we join our signatures attest to what we believe and the values that you demonstrated in your light shining. Congratulations. God bless you. I want to ask Darrell Jones if he would say something first. And if you can say something about the meaning of the value, and then we'll have talk. We're going to defer to Darrell Jones, our leader of our minority business community, if he would offer some words. And before you say something, Ms. Olene. All right. Good. Brother Jones.
Thank you, Commissioners, County Administrator, County Attorney. As a student, former student and an alum of Florida A&M University who has been the beneficiary of many wonderful meals. I just got skinty, but long before I was skinty, I was voluptuous, and that voluptuousness was found at her counter. Countless young people who were enrolled at Florida A&M University found great comfort, solace, and a fantastic meal and wonderful dining right there in the shadow of the campus, right there, and what now is popularly called SOMO, but what we knew most particularly right there on South Side. And she has been the yardstick by which successful minority-owned businesses can be measured. But beyond that, her real value is not found in the number of meals that she sold, but the number of young people who did not have enough and yet were still fed. And for that, we are grateful for what has been the emblematic excellence that she has personified through her work. FAMU's motto is excellence with caring, but it has also been wonderfully manifest in her great business acumen at Olene's Restaurant. And I'm grateful to stand here with you and honored and proud. And congratulations yet again.
Ms. Olene, before you say one more thing, because he crossed the line a little bit of some things, but my ex-wife was and I said, "Girl, what you doing?" And she said, "I eat breakfast every day from Miss Olene. She sends my breakfast up here." And I said, you're gonna need to slow that down. And you need to know that I lost that battle, Miss Olene. That's why, I have to say my ex-wife, I reckon. But Vince, when you meet people and they're single digit and then they become Miss Olene. Miss Olene, we love you. Would you like to say something?
Thank you. I just want to tell everyone thank you for calling on me to accept this award. And it's been a pleasure to serve so many people. I remember you. and you. But it's just a pleasure to serve so many people in Tallahassee, Florida. Olene's Restaurant, if you don't know, 1605 South Adams Street. Put it in your phone. Address. Come on back. And I love helping people. And so many kids went to school at Florida A&M University. If didn't have enough funds, I had a piece like that. They wouldn't leave out without a breakfast, something. And that's what I do. I care for people. And that tornado, whew, there was something. But I fed all them folks come through the door for free.
$3.99.
Free. And so I'm so grateful to stand here and be honored.
What's your hours of operation?
From 7 to 2 p.m. Don't come at 2:30. We close.
It'll all be gone too by 1.
Yeah, 1:30.
Ms. Olin, we thank you, and as a photographer who desires to take your picture in mine, I don't know about these other 2 guys. Photographer, you got me and Ms. Olin, don't worry about those other guys.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Thank you, Ms. McCaskill. We've got a couple of commissioners.
I'm gonna correct that.
Commissioner Proctor.
She's a redskin, not a cool.
Oh, Redskin.
You are.
Ms. McCaskill, there's a couple of commissioners, Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. Yes, I have had plenty of meals right there at your spot on Adams Street. I think as we recognize you today for what you did for the folks during that tornado, I think there's a larger thing to recognize you for. Mr. Jones, School Board Member Jones, expressed his gratitude for the many times he sat at your table right there in Olene's. Think about how many young people that you became the first meal that they had when they came to Tallahassee. Yes. How many people that you were part of that village that helped keep them and raise them and grow them right here in Tallahassee. So bigger than what you did for that tornado, the countless numbers of people, the Andrew Gillums, the Daryl Jones, there's so many people at Florida State who come down, or family who come down just to eat your food, just to get that feel of Mama's Kitchen that you show in Olene's is more of a bigger honor that I think we deserve, that you deserve, and that we should give you for what you do for our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Ms. McCaskill, I just want to say we certainly appreciate you allowing us to give you a proclamation today. I'm certainly a witness to your culinary talents there at Orleans. The food is great, the portions are great. We thank you for what you do to serve our students right across the street at Florida A&M University. And we also just want to applaud you for your generosity during that storm. Many people, especially in that area, had no electricity.
Yes.
As we know, but you generously fed the populations, fed those that came in to work to provide services and get the electricity back on. So we thank you, and we ask that God continue to bless you in your business and bless you with your generosity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can we give her another round of applause, everybody? Mr. County Administrator, and thank you again, Commissioner Proctor. We appreciate it. Do we have any citizens to be heard on consent and non-agended items?
We do, Madam Chair. Good evening. Thank you. The first speaker we have on Zoom is Lonnie Mann. And it may take just a minute here, but I understand we got him on the line.
Yes, am I unmuted?
You are, and we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm Lonnie Mann. I'm a member of Panhandle Archaeological Society. You may have read my one-pager, if you did not fall asleep first, about the passive manner by which we handle our cultural resources. In a word, we rely on the kindness of strangers. Do sites get archaeologically tested? Yes, if the developer's contractor says so. Can we rely on the results of the testing? Don't know. The county doesn't have staff that's qualified to evaluate the work. Does archaeological testing fail to find significant resources? Yes, it can and does. So we have an unanticipated fines ordinance that requires contractors to report fines that turn up during clearing and land contouring. Problem is, nobody complies with it. Abandoned cemeteries without markers are increasingly a part of the picture, so assistance to citizens and increased vigilance is needed. In short, nobody is minding the store when it comes to protecting cultural resources. We do much better by trees and other items contained in the NFI. We desperately need a city and county archaeologist and wish to have the opportunity to speak individually to each commissioner in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Kate McFall, to be followed by Karen Woodall.
Great. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kate McFall, and I'm the Florida State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. The other hat I wear is local animal advocate and animal shelter volunteer. I'd like to urge this commission to consider and support an ordinance to prohibit the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits, to protect the people and the animals in our community. Puppies sold in retail stores come from puppy mills, large commercial breeders who put financial gain and profit over the welfare of dogs. Most people today know that puppy mills are cruel and inhumane. It's an everyday household name, although many people don't realize that the puppies for sale in a puppy store come from puppy mills. Female dogs are bred every heat cycle with little or no vet care, any kind of care, until they're no longer useful and then disposed of. While the extensive animal cruelty and humane concerns are paramount to the Humane Society of the United States and to most members of the public, the consumer protection problems with this industry are widespread and staggering. Florida leads the nation with the number of consumer complaints to our hotline, and apparently to the AG's office as well. In 2022, Ashley Moody's office concluded a 2-year investigation into a pet store in Orange County. There were complaints of sick and dying puppies, and that the pet store was aware of diseases, congenital defects, and knowingly sold them to unsuspecting puppy buyers, who then were faced with heartbreak and the massive veterinary bills as they tried to save their new puppies. The result was the store had to pay over $200,000 to some of the consumers for their veterinary costs. At the commercial breeders in states like Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, and Ohio, puppies are taken from their mothers at 8 weeks or sooner, hauled hundreds of miles to Florida, either to the broker or directly to the pet store, where they're then put up for sale. It's no wonder so many wind up sick. Predatory lending is another serious concern. Most pet stores offer a third-party financing option with interest rates at 100, sometimes even 150%. They capitalize on the emotional purchase of the puppy in the window, and consumers wind up with payments that they can't afford. There are 85 ordinances today in Florida, and about 15 of them are in counties: Orange, Nassau, Hillsborough, Lake, DeSoto, and many more, just to name a few. Pet parents are always encouraged to adopt from their local shelter, rescue, or humane society, or to seek out a responsible breeder. There are valid reasons why an option in the middle of the road, may look okay, but is problematic and unenforceable. Now is the time to pass such an ordinance to ensure Leon County is not part of this cruel industry, to protect people and pets in our community, and I'm here to help if in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Karen Woodall. Ms. Woodall, we have 2 cards in for you, so you can go to the next one after you complete this.
Oh, you want me to do them?
Sure.
Okay, sure. I can do that. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I just want to share that I, too, have eaten at Olean's, and it was a well-deserved honor that you gave her. I wanted to share, I'm the Executive Director of the Florida People's Advocacy Center located on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Frenchtown, and it's in that capacity that I wanted to share with you an exciting opportunity to explore rapid housing, transitional housing for homeless folks. It's taken place all over the country. I sent each of you an article about it using shipping containers to develop single-person housing units. I want to clarify something I misspoke on with some of you. Atlanta has a really great project called the Melody Project. They took shipping containers, split them, they have a whole little micro community. I thought that those cost $25,000 per unit, but I was confusing it with Denver, who also did it and used units that they didn't have bathrooms and showers in, so they were $25,000. The Atlanta project was $125,000 per unit, which is still very reasonable. They constructed them in 4 months. They used Georgia FEMA trailers containers to convert them. And I just wanted to share with you this information because I think it's an exciting opportunity that we should look at. Because as you all know, the legislature has passed a bill that is going to prohibit public sleeping, and that goes into effect in October. And this has been an issue we've always been trying to address, but it's kind of crucial right now that we figure out a way to provide some transitional housing for folks who are waiting on 4, 5, 8-month wait lists to get into permanent supportive housing. A lot of folks participated in this. It takes a village. There's opportunity to get shipping containers donated. And I just look forward to working with you on seeing what we could do in this community along these lines. Thanks. So the second one, which I didn't know I was doing in order, has to do with heirs property. And it is an item in your consent agenda on housing development. And first, I want to thank you for recommending the $50,000 to provide legal assistance on heirs property. We just have been working on a project on heirs property in Frenchtown from the Frenchtown Neighborhood Plan. And I wanted to share with you some additional takeaways from that work, in addition to the need for legal assistance, which is critical for people to get their title clear, find their heirs, and try to regain their property. The things that we heard about people needed are along the lines of resources. Also, there's a need for some kind of, perhaps a grant program to assist people one time with paying off their taxes so they can, once they clear their title and all, they can get their property back. There is a need for people to be able to get help with rehabbing their properties, even if they don't have clear title, if in fact they're heirs property. So that's something to look into. And I know some of this isn't in your domain, some of it's in the city, but it's kind of a joint effort. Another thing I sent you an article about was in Gainesville, they are doing assistance for heirs property using their CRA, which again, I know you're not over the CRA, but it would be an opportunity since the county's stepping up with some funding for legal assistance to maybe coordinate and leverage and maximize those resources. As you know, this is a big critical issue, and if people are going to be able to maintain their homes and their communities and keep it in their family, it's a big critical issue, and I want to thank you for addressing it in your other issue, but wanted to put a little plug in for these other things we might want to work together on. Thank you.
Final speaker on consent and non-agenda items, Stanley Sims.
Commissioner Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. Conservative customers asked me, Ms. Chastity, what do you think about that investigation with that post? I've learned now in dealing with emotional intelligence, words, relationships matter. So I really was careful with my response. I said, well, first, one who has been publicly humiliated by government staff with no or very slow or non-response, here is what I feel. I told them, I said, number one, I said, I trust Vince. Vince is a man in my history that doesn't place personality in situations that hinder or hurt or even gives the perception of clouding the culture of an open door policy at Leon County government. Now, Madam Chair, that's a lot coming from me. And the reason I'm able to say that, so my conservative customer pressed me, he said, well, you know, not, I said, yes, I do. I say, but when I look back at my experience, it was not those kind of things that made a difference. Because when we live in America and we come into a government facility, the bar for the standard of customer care is larger, higher than it is when we go to McDonald's. Why? Because everyone that's sitting in one of those seats up there, you're sitting there funded by my tax dollars. And so, Ms. Chastity, you came up. Oh, I ain't got but 30 seconds. I said, Ms. Chastity, I've operated with her in the professional realm and in Publix picking our eggs. It's good when your constituency can vouch for you. That article said things to me that said, hold on, let me do my job. I'm looking into it. It's not going to be long, and we will let you know. That's government accountability. And Mr. Vince, Ms. Chastity, is that type of work that makes you, Vince, worldwide best county administrator. Y'all see he ain't stopping me tonight. Your time is up. They ain't stopping me. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Those of you all that spoke on non-agenda items. Mr. County Administrator, do we have any items pulled from the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Items 5, 6, and 9 have been pulled.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Commissioner Proctor has some aides, and they have to leave shortly, and he would like to recognize those summer aides that has worked in his office. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I wanted to recognize what I call affectionately the firm. Ask my 3 interns this summer if you all will please stand. The firm, because they all want to be lawyers, so I couldn't think of any other word other than to give this group the name, the title of the firm. And you're probably looking at the firm, and they're probably going to be practicing together the very near future. I wanted to say to each of you, we thank you so much for your coming, your steadfastness, and my aide who has been very, very attendant to them. I recognize that your day might be ending quickly, and Thursday is their last day with the county. But we thank the county for the program that we do during the summer and some of the beneficiaries these young people right here. Thank you all. Can we give them a hand? I can't speak for other commissioners, interns. They may not want to recognize theirs. I'm proud of mine, so thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Are there other commissioners who have interns that will be leaving?
Recognize all of them?
Yeah, we can, but Commissioner O'Keefe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to recognize my intern, Sylvia Weber. She's also going to be leaving. I think interns should have to stay as long as we do. That's really how work goes. But apparently they have other priorities. So I just want to thank you, and I imagine we're going to thank all of our interns. They're all fantastic.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Welch.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say, can all of our summer interns stand up? Obviously, I think we all appreciate everything you guys have done. We know y'all are going back to school next month, and we won't be here next month. So just go ahead and, I assume this is cool.
Well, I think Commissioner Caban might want to
Yeah, if you wanna
recognize
point out
his
one specifically.
individually. So
Yeah, I wanna give a
I'll
big-
let him do that, yeah.
I'll give a big thank you to Drew, Darcy, and Bella. They actually prepared the District 2 newsletter this month. So to all our constituents who are going to receive a newsletter this month on behalf of District 2, they put the work in. They've worked some long days this summer, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caban. Thank all of you all that interned this summer with the various commissioners, and we certainly hope that you were exposed to a very great learning experience, and perhaps you might join us again next summer. So let's give all of them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. County Administrator, I believe you indicated 3 items have been pulled, 5, 6, and 9. Commissioners, I'd like to,
Can I make a suggestion, Madam Chair, that we go ahead and approve the ones that weren't pulled?
that's what I was about to say.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Welch.
Sorry. So sorry.
I'd like to entertain, Commissioners, a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding 5, 6, and 9.
Madam Chair, I'll second Commissioner Welch's motion to that effect.
Thank you. Any discussion or opposition? So it's approved by acclamation. Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 5 is a ratification of the board actions at your June 18th budget workshop. And this item is being pulled because I believe we have a recusal that is required. So with that, I will hand it over to Commissioner Maddox.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I want to make a motion for option number 1, everything except for D and E, which I'll be recusing myself for. Commissioner, you good? You're good, okay. So option 1 excluding D and E.
And you made the motion, Commissioner?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All those in favor excluding, okay, discussion, Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually wanted to ask the board if we could further bifurcate this on items, on this item, option 1, line item L and N. I would like to vote no on those 2 specifically, Madam Chair. I could explain briefly why, but
I'll tell you what, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make the motion for.
You'll amend your motion. You'll
I'll amend my motion.
Okay.
Option number 1, excluding D, E, L, and M.
N, as in
L
no.
and N. I'll make that motion, and I'll come back and make a motion for L and N, and then I'll recuse myself from D and E, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, for clarification, option 1, D, E, L, M, and
No,
N.
D, E, excluding D, E, L, and N.
And N, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Option 1, excluding D, E, L, and N. It was seconded by Commissioner Caban. A discussion, Commissioner O'Keefe.
No discussion, Madam Chair. I was making sure we had the second, that's all.
Okay,
Seconded, and I accept the amendment.
and you accept the amendment, okay. Madam Clerk, so we clear? Okay, good. With no discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Madam Chair, I'll make a
Commissioner
motion
Maddox. Okay.
I'll make a motion for items, option 1, L and N, Madam Chair.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, option one, with L and N.
Yes, ma'am.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No. Okay. And that's number 5.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve option 1D and E.
1E and
D.
D.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, let the record reflect I recuse myself because of my employment with Family Promise of the Big Bend, which is a parent company of Hope Community, which will receive funds in this item. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Proctor.
Madam Chair, I'd like to express my pride and sincere appreciation to this board for its heartfelt inclusion of item J, which is a 5% pay raise for all of Leon County's government workers and employees, as well as for all of our constitutional officers, employees that will be featured in our 2025 budget. That's just a highlight of which is heartfelt, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor, and I certainly echo your sentiment as well. Any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and will the record show that Commissioner Maddox recused himself? Thank you. Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 6 is the fiscal year 2025 State Housing Initiative Partnership Funding. And with that, I will hand it off to Commissioner O'Keefe.
Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This deserves approval. I only pulled it to highlight the important inclusion of $50,000 of funds for legal aid for the AIR program, and we heard about that from one speaker. So I move acceptance of staff recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Well, actually, Madam Chair, in abundance of caution, Madam Attorney, do I have a conflict?
This relates to, well, option 1 relates to maximizing opportunities to preserve or increase affordable housing and meet the minimum SHIP expenditure requirements. So is there a possibility that your entity will receive funding through this program?
No, ma'am.
Do you have no conflict?
Okay. Madam Chair, I'll second.
Thank you.
Point of
Is
information,
there
Madam
any
Chair.
discussion, Commissioner Proctor?
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask maybe Mr. Shinkton-Lammy if he could tell us, and Teresa, I'm curious about Ms. Broxton, monies that we had for transitional housing for persons returning from incarceration. Yeah, and does this year's money anticipate, and did we spend all the money that we had utilized for housing for transition from incarceration? And will this anticipate monies for that program? And Teresa, whatever our the new ask is for, are we integrated into this right here?
No. Commissioner, this is specifically regarding the SHIP dollars that we get allocated from the state. The dollars you're talking about is the dollars that the board allocates annually to the PSCC. And that actually will be coming up at the next PSCC meeting, specifically to talk about transitional housing as a program for those who are being released from our jail.
All right, so we'll make a blanket decision to take that money if we've not been well pleased with its effectiveness, and we can redesignate it to another area to stymie the recidivism at the jail.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lammy. Anything further, Commissioner Proctor?
No, ma'am.
So I believe the motion on the floor is staff recommendation. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, options 1 and 2, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you so much. Unanimous. Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 9 is the authorization to negotiate for professional audit services. This item was pulled by Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one I am bringing up, it's my profession, so I look over these carefully. And the importance of an audit is that, remember, they're auditing for us. They're not auditing for management. They're telling us and our citizens that the numbers management provides are accurate. That's an independent audit. The firm that we are using is a well-qualified firm, and we're asked to approve, based on a competitive bid, a 3-year term plus a 2-year option plus another 2-year option. This firm has been providing audit services since 1993. We have had 31 years of the same audit firm. This is not anything on this audit firm. This is not me saying we shouldn't approve this contract. This is me talking about an agenda item on an update to a policy. An important thing with audit firms is the concept of independence, and there were guidance changed after the early 2000s WorldCom and Enron scandals, where they said, in this case, one of the issues was the firm that is now out of business was the client. They had the Enron client forever, and they were buddies. They played golf. I'm not saying Vince plays golf or anything like that, but they didn't call out the issue they saw, and so new guidance on independence and rotation was advised. To be clear, this is not a legal requirement, but it is a practice that other effective institutions have put in place. The example I'm pulling is FSU. Now, FSU, over the years, some of their support organizations, like the different foundations and associations, had some fraud come up. And what they did was they said, we want to do a new policy to tighten up and get a fresh set of eyes, a new firm to come in and look and say, hey, let's look at this different. Let's make sure everything makes sense. And they set their rules that an audit firm must be rotated every 5 years and use a new firm unless their board acknowledges or approves a 10-year. So max 10-year, one firm can audit the entity. Now, different legal rules apply. I don't believe anything precludes us from this, but I'm moving that we approve this contract and bring back addition to the procurement policy with the item that's already coming back on procurement revisions to require that no audit firm can serve more than 5 years without a firm rotation or an extended 10 years with board approval.
Did you second it, Commissioner Caban? Okay. Commissioner Proctor, you have a comment?
Madam Chair, I'm a little embarrassed today. I'm feeling a little shame. I wanted to ask if I might, this comes under Clerk Marshall, and she's here today. If I could ask Clerk Marshall some professional questions with respect to
she is here.
The auditing function. Yes.
State the motion, please.
But did we get a second? Yeah, Commissioner Caban second the motion.
Sure.
And after the clerk speaks, then we can have some more discussion about the motion.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to restate the motion.
Sure. Motion is to approve the current bid contract and to bring back a procurement agenda item to update the procurement policy requiring auditor firm rotation every 5 years or up to 10 if the board approves it for a firm before rotating to a new firm.
Let me ask you this. Can you consider maybe ask the staff to bring it back without that specific stipulation of 5 or 10 years, but allow the board, once we get their presentation, to make those specifics, if we want to?
It's something that I don't want the board to have to spend our time with every 5 years. If it's not the will of the board after we speak and discuss, I understand it's not the will of the board, but I'd like to, I like some of the examples set by other entities, and I think it's 5 and 10 is good, but it may or may not be the will of the board.
No, what I'm thinking is giving the board more flexibility and just saying in general, have the agenda item come back and have the board discuss whether or not we want to place a restriction on the number of years that any auditing firm performs services for the county. And if we want to limit it to 5 or 10 years.
We would do that analysis.
Yeah.
For you.
Right.
Okay, then how about I amend the motion to say, approve the bid contract as presented and request staff bring back an agenda item considering requiring audit firm rotation as a procurement policy.
I think that's general enough. Is there, okay, awesome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I'm a little bit embarrassed because one of the reasons we have elections is to get fresh eyes and fresh insights. And Commissioner O'Keefe probably tunes into this item in part because he is an accountant. But his fresh eyes and fresh questions reminds me of old conversations. And I know, and the Madison County Administrator walked with me back through the time tunnel. There have been 3 times that we've said that this is going to be Ferguson's last time to re-up. At least 3. I distinctly hear, when I look at this item, Commissioner DeLoge's concerns about how many times do you just feast on this public trough. 1993, we've not rotated. I want to ask the clerk, is there a norm, Madam Clerk, we operating as a county inside of a particular norm of what y'all go by for? And I wonder, do we have any other vendors who have been a continuing commentator to us about our financial health? Are there new ideas? Has anybody but this firm have something new to say? We've had this discussion before. Commissioner Maddox remembers this, and he knows that this firm at least twice have come up and we said that we're not gonna, just for the good of the order, that it's just not the right habit. But not to bring the old up, but clerk help us to understand, give us guidance on best practices or something like, what should we be looking at?
Well, first, good afternoon, Commissioners. And I would first like to say thank you for allowing the clerks to have input on this discussion item. It has been my professional experience. I'm not familiar with any laws, as Commissioner O'Keefe mentioned earlier, that mandates auditors rotation. However, there has been several institutions that have weighed in on this issue as it relates to practices, best practices, and standards. And it all depends on, a lot of times, the criteria that they look at is the size of the operation and things of that nature. But if I may, I've asked my chief deputy as well as my finance director to join me up here. They have more expertise in this area. Based on my previous experience working with the statewide clerk association, and particularly the Orange County Comptroller's Office, there were standards and best practices requiring mandatory rotation. But again, you have to look at the pros and the cons of the operation. But I'm gonna ask Ken, would you mind if I may have him share some more information about certain pros and cons that you might want to consider in this decision process?
Yes, ma'am, if the chair would permit her. Madam Chair, she's requested to allow her deputy to speak.
Good afternoon,
It's perfectly
Commissioners.
appropriate, yes.
My name's Kenneth Kent. I'm the Chief Deputy Clerk in the Office of the Clerk of the Circuit Court and Controller. Also worked for a number of years for a statewide association and looked at a number of different county audits and their practices and took those into account in the programs that we were operating at the time. First, there is certainly in federal law some encouragement. Commissioner O'Keefe, I think you were referencing the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which talks about mandatory rotation. There is no rotation requirement in Florida statutes. There is requirement for a selection process and a selection committee made up of representatives or members of the Board of County Commissioners and constitutional officers to bring back their ranked choices to the board. In looking at these and talking to people over the years, what I've heard is that the benefit of keeping a auditor on concurrent audit assignments is the buildup in institutional knowledge and expertise. Rotation, really the benefit there is that you're, as you said, a fresh set of eyes, and I think the hope is a enhanced focus on objectivity. There are cons to both of these approaches. As you mentioned, one could possibly be familiarity. When you have the same staff, as you mentioned, the same management and the same audit staff working year after year. Rotation addresses that concern. With rotation, the concern that I've heard from management folks is the timeline involved in building up that institutional knowledge and expertise. So it really comes down to a policy decision of the board. I think what you're really trying to get at is audit quality and what's the best way to approach getting audit quality so that you, as the governing body of this jurisdiction, have a high level of assurance that the financial statements are completely accurate and avoid any material misstatement. That said, it is a policy decision. What I think Clerk Marshall said, we have seen with some of the more complex local government entities is a rotation policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand what you've said. I think that our interest over the years has been when you have a vendor which over time fosters a quaintness, a lackadaisicalness, a comfort level, and with that, failure to scrutinize and to give comprehensive and thorough, complete, investigatory engagement with auditing. And when you've been there 31 years performing that, our concerns have always been with just how poignant and aggressive, if you will, constructive aggressiveness to get into the marrow of the bones of the financial realities of Leon County. So, yes, the historicity of knowing the institution, all of that, it has value. But what compromises that is a comfort level. And are there standards besides the Sarbanes Act that suggests a rotation factor, even in the industry, that suggests how frequent should it occur?
Commissioner, we've actually looked at that issue, and it's a mixed bag, so to speak. For example, AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, does not recommend rotation. The government finance officers, I think, is neutral on that, but really stresses that you should have a strong procurement process and selection process. I looked recently at an article by the American Accounting Association in which they found by studying actually Florida data, the Florida local government marketplace, that there was some potential increase in audit quality through the selection process, the rotation process. And if you've been on the side of having found an unfortunate incident in your local government, you probably would be leaning towards rotation. I can tell you here, you mentioned bones broken. We sometimes feel like we've been beat up pretty good. So we haven't experienced that level of familiarity. But that said, we believe that the audits that the finance director and myself and the clerk have been involved in have been extremely intensive and very down in the weeds. So I don't think that's an issue for this jurisdiction, but it's really a policy issue. So as I said, it's mixed. I found a blog called, I think it was City Ethics, in which the writer strongly encouraged rotation. And again, this is in reaction to a city in California where they discovered that the senior management was pulling down 6 to 7 figure salaries, and there was no oversight. I have, in my experience over the years, seen jurisdictions that weren't as fortunate and did discover misuse of funds, and they did change auditors afterwards.
Well, I looked at the scoring table, and there's no doubt at the end of this thing, you all have scored these people about 20 points out from whoever came in, I'm sorry, a solid 9 points. Ferguson is 9 points ahead of number 2 and just running ahead of the field. How extensive and how broad is our auditing? Is it just the county, Leon counties does include the supervisor, the sheriff? Who are you all digging at?
So the auditors work with each entity, the board and the constitutional officers, to develop a separate set of audited financial statements. And so they go in depth with all 5 entities. Those are then compiled subsequently into an annual consolidated financial report in which certain additional levels of review and certain financial treatments, for example, there is a modified accrual that's put into the ACFR, the annual report, that you would not see in the individual audits themselves. In other words, the annual audit, the one that the chair and the clerk sign and send off to the Auditor General, that is developed to provide the citizens, bondholders, other interested parties with a complete view of the financial position of the county. Not only what was received and spent during the year, but what are the future liabilities of the organization so that they can have a better idea of what the financial position is. Each separate audit that's done before that really digs into what was brought in and what was spent, and was it spent in accordance with laws, rules, policies, and in accordance with the budget.
So I don't want to prolong it.
It's a very thorough process.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, I don't want to prolong, but I think that what Commissioner O'Keefe brings to our awareness is this continuing concern with this continuing one entity. The scoring is nowhere close. They continue to be far ahead of number 2, 3, and 4. But our sensitivities, and I think this is a great rendering of judgment to call this. I want to ask the county administrator, because if we get an amber light on, I mean, what we're saying is that all of our constitutionals have managed their financials so great, so good, so perfect, that we don't get amber warnings, red lights, and if they flash, how would they come to our attention? Is it resolved at staff level? But everything comes in peachy keen. Nobody's done anything wrong or needs to be put on probation. So year after year, Constitution after Constitution, we sit here and rubber stamp and take what Ferguson and them have said, and we tie a bow around it, and it put political optics look good and great. Vince, are you pleased, notwithstanding this scoring, I'm talking about the functionality of how Ferguson, is these boys got their game tight and right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Proctor, happy to respond. A couple of things just real quick. Just want to make it clear, because Ken goes in greater detail than me. I can bring it back up to the surface a little bit. I think what you heard is that generally, and while you're right, Commissioner Proctor, we've had robust conversations, policy conversations about this in the past. Ultimately, where the board came down based on a lot of different guidance is that limiting the timeline was perhaps not as important as having a rigid procurement process, which we do. And ultimately, where the literature comes down is that what it's most important that you do is you get an auditor who has, given the size and the scope and the complexity of what we do, that you have an auditor with the capacity to do that. And that's ultimately where the board has come down. So to date, while we're very happy to do the analysis, and I think it's a very reasonable suggestion and motion, and I think the board may very well do that, and it may be very appropriate based on the guidance that we come back with. But again, in the past, it really has been with a very rigid procurement process, a open and competitive procurement process, a regular procurement process? Do you have that? And then ultimately, do you find through that process a vendor that has the capacity to do what you do, given the size and scope and complexity of what you do? And that is what our process has resulted in with the incumbent. With respect to findings that you mentioned, Commissioner Proctor, there's a very formal process that happens through the audit process, which does result in a management letter and findings, which are presented to you. And so there's a process, again, a formalized process, which these folks could talk about even more, where the entities are given the ability to correct certain things over a period of time. And when those, but we've had very good experience with not only our internal operations, but as well as the constitutionals to correct any findings that come out of the process.
Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Commissioner Pratt, I do remember the conversations we had around this, and I think the county administrator summed it up well when we said that we focus more so on the procurement process, more so than the longevity of one firm doing our audit. So just from my understanding, the way it sits, if this passed, what would happen is that it wouldn't matter who would be the highest scoring. If the highest scoring organization had been with us for 5 years, then we would have to go to the next highest scoring organization, or they would be disqualified from being able to apply for this procurement. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm way more interested in who can do the job and who does the job best. And time after time after time, if Thomas Howell Ferguson or Law Red or whoever shows themselves to be the most appropriate by points, because again, Mr. Administrator, as I understand it, you guys made this procurement process one of the most rigid out of all the procurement processes we have when it comes to picking our auditor, correct?
We follow all the guidance on the procurement process.
I think I err more on the side of not just one, because I do also believe in that institutional knowledge piece that you spoke of. I think that goes a long way, especially when it comes to audits. But more than that, I'm not interested in disqualifying a audit firm that is the most qualified to do the work because they've done the work for 5 years, and then have to pick up another audit firm who then will get another who will get 5 years, and they'd be disqualified. And we go back to the other one. I think if I don't think the system's broke. I think what's happening here is working. I think they've done a good job. I think the procurement process is rigid enough to make sure that we're weeding out those firms that are not as qualified to do the work as we need them to do. So I'm satisfied with where we are right now. And I would just make a substitute motion for staff recommendation on this.
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Commissioner Maddox. I think that we have an objective process. We shouldn't punish a firm who wins objectively. It's a committee made up of people from each of the constitutional offices that vet these things. Their scores are not the same. Some of the representatives from the offices scored some of these higher, some of these lower. It wasn't just an across-the-board Thomas Howell Ferguson sweep, and I don't think it's fair for us as elected officials to rig the game, so to speak, when you have a firm who's winning an objective process-based evaluation for their services. And so just in principle, I think that's where I'm going to fall down. So I agree with Commissioner Maddox in that regard. I mean, Thomas Howell Ferguson wins the bid because they objectively provide the service or their scores win. I mean, I understand the sentiment behind that, but I can't support Commissioner O'Keefe's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Welch. Let me just ask you, it's only 5 points, but local preference, is that subjective? Is it locality? What's involved in the local preference score?
Good afternoon. I believe the local preference score is given to...
Can you get to the mic? Go to the mic.
Sorry. The local preference score is related to any organization that has an office located in Tallahassee, and then that score would be applied to any of those vendors who applied.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you. Commissioner Proctor.
Is that in this particular field, unique and different from, say, like construction, a local preference in construction likely is looking at employees that will be summons from the area, geographic specific around Tallahassee. Auditing functions with, say, a firm that has a Pensacola, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. How important is local preference to the financial networks? And just because you have an office in Tallahassee in this regard, the actual thought center may come out of Orlando. Is it even relevant, local preference to auditing? That's the question I think I hear the chair lady asking.
Commissioner, again, that's really a policy preference. I think it's intended that if there's an office here in the community, then a lot of the people in that office would be engaged in the audit, which would provide more work in the community and also reduce possibly the cost of the audit through travel costs that would be added on. That is a possibility. I have also seen where a local firm will take in order to avoid any kind of familiarity, take a partner or a team from a different office and bring that in. So it all depends on various factors.
Well, I looked at this carefully, and that doesn't mean that it was well looked at simply because I looked at it carefully. It really doesn't mean anything. But the bottom ranking score got 0 and would have come in second. Thomas Ferguson got 5 for the local preference. Now, just because you were local, I mean, you're local, doesn't mean you're not you just got 5 points for local. This lady got 0 points for not, that doesn't speak to her ability, it just speaks to her geography. Her geography and her competency are two different things. When it comes to the examination, the x-raying, the investigation of our books, we don't have to get the most local person if you got a brain surgeon. I mean, a lot of people go to Gainesville for health care because presumably they have better people. I mean, we could go local and come up a little short, graveyard dead. So I think that this is an area that local is not as strong a point, even though no one has been more preferential toward localness than myself. But I've also looked, and not wanting to second guess, but it seemed like the women judges was harder on this woman in their scoring than the guys the males in terms of names that I recognize. And I just don't think that the firm that came in last is actually the last place firm when you factor she got nothing for being non-local. Still, the margin is pretty wide. It's much too wide, and I think that Commissioner Maddox, in his wisdom, agrees the margin is too wide, even if she's given those 5 points, to create any pause. So Ferguson stands tall. But Commissioner Maddox, I'm still believing that your motion should carry the spirit of what Commissioner O'Keefe is asking. This is an area we can't go to sleep on. And I think that his triggers that level of consciousness, that coziness is not a factor to compromise. I stopped doing my ill-spent youth. I used to go to my cousin for doctor's checkup and all like that. And I pretty much told him what was going to happen and what ain't going to happen in this exam today. And I got a little old, matured. I allowed the doctor to be the doctor and not my cousin. So I went to somebody. Well, and when you get too cozy with folk, and I think that dynamic, Commissioner Maddox, if in your hearing, broad hearing, we could incorporate it because it also takes in what clerk and deputy clerk have suggested, that in the industry, there is an element of the industry that calls for rotation. And I think that we would align ourselves with with that element that calls for rotation, and it's for the reasons, the soft reasons, the fuzzy reasons that we're concerned about having a sharp and a laser focus of a company. I'm comfortable that this motion allows us to adopt the recommendation of staff because they're way head above everybody else. But I think that we should be prepared and to look at and bring this back. And Ferguson has been the poster child. I mean, it really has been over the years that we don't re-up. And I would be curious to know, Vince, if there's any other vendor that we have such seasonal relationship with, such routine re-upping. There's almost no need to even have a RFP. There's no need for RFP because they do it. And we wanted to make sure that we were tight and that we were right. And that's been the reason over the years that this contract has always caused this very same conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I hope that
Commissioner
can
Proctor.
incorporate what
Commissioner
he said.
Maddox?
Thank you. Madam Chair, just real quick, Commissioner Proctor, I hear you. I value competence over rotation. I think if anybody up here, if you were asked, did you support the idea of term limits, we would all say no. We would say the electorate, by virtue of the job that we do, implant or enforce term limits on us when we have not done the job that they think we should do. I think this, in a way, is almost saying, well, you've done a good job, but you only do a good job for 5 years, and we might see you the next 5, but we can't see you another 5, simply because you've done it for 5 years. So, again, I go back to the point of competence versus rotation. If there's an organization out there that can come in and rank higher in our strenuous process than Thomas Howell Ferguson, I'm all for them. I have no problem with that. But I want to see somebody come in and be more competent and a better fit to do the job than Thomas Howell Ferguson, not simply do the job because Thomas Howell Ferguson has done it for 5 years. One last thing, Madam Chair, on the idea of local preference. I will always be a supporter of local preference, especially if the organization is competent. Local preference is a huge thing for me because those dollars that are spent here locally rotate right here, right back in this community. So I think it's well worth the 5 points to give Thomas Howell Ferguson or whoever else is local that's applying because those dollars are spent right here in this community. And so, Matt, though I understand the spirit of where you are, I just think it's just a fundamental difference in the way I think about it when it comes to, like I said, that competence versus rotation. Just be better. If an organization wants this contract, come in and be better fit or better organization than Thomas Howell Ferguson and do the work. That's all I ask. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Thank you, Clerk Marshall, and your experts for answering our questions. I want to ask our county attorney if she has any comments on this.
Madam Chair, my only comment is, as is referenced, the deputy clerk referenced it as well. It's referencing materials. Local governments are subject to Section 218.391, which lays out the process that has to be used to procure and solicit your audit services. So anything, just as a baseline, that the board would consider to do in modifying its current process would have to comport with state law, which, by the way, FSU and its DSO policy is not subject to this particular statute. Okay.
Thank you, Madam County Attorney. Commissioners, the motion on the floor is staff.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Minor and then Commissioner O'Keefe. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner O'Keefe for bringing this up. The commissioner is doing his job. He's using his background and expertise and his perspective to bring contributions to the commission. So I want to thank him for that. I've thought this through very carefully as everyone's been talking, different points of view about rotation, having a fresh set of eyes take a look at this versus someone that has been with us for a while. I do support the motion on the table because I do think that we should be focused on choosing the firm with the highest quality. And as Commissioner Maddox said very well, I mean, I wouldn't want us to have that firm of highest quality for 5 years and then we have to take the second place. I do see both sides of this argument, but because of this particular situation, I think some of the arguments that we've heard at the dais here, I am supporting the motion on the table. With accounting and auditing, reputation is everything. And I think Commissioner O'Keefe brought up Enron, and the auditing firm, the accounting firm for Enron was Arthur Andersen, which doesn't exist anymore because of its relationship with Enron and the failure that it had in highlighting some of the problems with Enron. So accounting and auditing firms know this. Their reputation is key. And so when you have a highly credible accounting firm that we award services, that we procure services from, they're going to make sure above everything else that our operations are clean and that their report is accurate. I know Commissioner O'Keefe knows all of this, but I think that's important for us to consider. So I'm supporting the motion on the table. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Did you have another comment?
Yes, I wanted to just follow up on a few things that were said and leave it. Everyone can decide, where they vote based on this. The it's Florida Auditor General's packet on auditor selection clarifies that it's not a requirement, and that they said one of the recommending organizations that doesn't take a position, yes or no, says one of the reasons is you may not have enough qualified firms with the capacity to do it. What I can tell you from being both the auditee and the auditor, our region has lots of qualified firms. And there are firms that aren't on this bid. And if I was at a firm and I saw one person had the audit for 31 years, I might stop bidding on it. And that's no slight against the people who bid, but that's just people who can read the room, in my opinion. We have plenty of qualified auditors who have all the public government expertise in this region. Second, I have been, like I said, I've been both the auditee and the audited of, for example, $10 billion government organization. So I understand audits. I can tell you, the internal accountant never wants a new auditor because you're gonna have, your first year of a new firm is always the hardest audit because they wanna make sure they catch everything up front and not say, oh, we found something, we missed it last year. That's one idea for it. That's why, and that's fine, that's just a statement. The other thing was mentioned an example, a number of localities started auditor rotation after fraud occurred. What I'm suggesting is we do it to prevent fraud occurring, and that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I want to say I want to commend Commissioner O'Keefe and his perspective here. Some of the things that he is saying are things that I do in my business with my business practices. Matter of fact, I have a director of operations, and as soon as I see my director of operations get very close with the accounting department, I switch accounting departments because I think it's important to have boundaries and a fresh set of eyes on the books. And I think also change is good, that we're not talking about, and I want to be very clear, but I don't think Commissioner O'Keefe is saying that Thomas Howell Ferguson is inadequate or not competent to do the job. I personally think they're very competent. I think what he's saying, they've been doing this job for 31 years. It's very easy for an accounting firm to be complacent and miss things or have relationships here or relationships here where they fix things at a lower level. And I think it's just another level of transparency and a good government that works for the people. And I also just want to say what Commissioner Maddox is saying is also a very good point. They are competent, they are doing a good job, and so I understand his perspective where if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think the perspective that I have here is, we are a newly elected generation of elected officials. Commissioner O'Keefe and I came in at the same time. We do want to see change. I want to see change. So I'm going to stand in here with Commissioner O'Keefe on this. And I also just want to say this. It's not unlikely, and this is another practice that big businesses do, Fortune 500 companies do this, and we have a $375 million budget. We could very well hire a second auditor to audit the audit firm. That's something that accounting practices, they do frequently. That would cost a little bit more money, but at a high level, we can one time hire an auditor to come in and audit the audit firm and say, hey, is the audit firm doing their job? Do we need to go a different route? And that's something that we could do as a board as well. But I do appreciate the dialogue, and I fully see where Commissioner Maddox and other commissioners are coming from. In this particular situation, I'm going to support Commissioner O'Keefe because I agree with his perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I want to make sure and ask our county attorney for guidance. Commissioner Maddox argues from the point of excellence. And I guess after 31 years, you presume excellence. You could say that the District 1 County Commissioner gets reelected out of excellence. And I think that's very right, by the way. Anybody that says anything different from that is not my friend. But is there an opt-out, an option, and I'm looking through these elements of contract terms. If excellence fails to be the high mark, how do we get out of these contracts of a long-term 3-year? And is there a way that we can get an escape clause when we grow dissatisfied, or when the county administrator tells us he's not satisfied, or if the clerk comes back and the clerk says, I have problems, how do we allow our administrator and our clerk to make the recommendation that we move on? And I think that to the extent that we should not be bound for an entire season to a long contract if the clerk and administrator are both dissatisfied and they both making recommendations that we change. That's my question, Nick. I mean, we okay in District 1, but some other districts may have some.
The county attorney can address.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Proctor, it's Section 18 of the proposed draft audit services agreement that's included in your agenda materials. It's on page 1, it starts on page 190 of the agenda materials. It's a termination provision that provides that Leon County can terminate this agreement without cause by giving the contractor 30 days written notice of termination. Either party may terminate for cause had given the other party 30 days
Madam
written
Attorney,
notice.
you are reading faster than I can hear. I can't hear that fast. Hold on.
We can terminate without cause with 30 days notice. That's the bottom line if we are dissatisfied with the audit services we are receiving.
Page 190.
That's correct. It's in attachment 1, page 7 of 51.
Gotcha. Okay. So if the county administrator or the clerk, or is this just for the county administrator, the clerk bringing to our awareness issues, and we get a chance to cut the cord? Okay.
30 days written notice.
Good. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Commissioner Proctor. Let me just ask one question, and then we're going to bring it to a vote. In the material, it also indicated that there is no aspirational goals because there was very few opportunities for subcontracting, and I guess we're talking about minority and women auditing firms, and I know quite a few here in Tallahassee. So, do you know? Can you explain that?
So the proposal from Thomas Howe Ferguson does include a minority partner involved as a minority firm. I believe that approximately 11% of the hours will be attributed to that particular firm.
So,
he was so
quiet. From
right
overall standpoint, where it indicated it was no aspirational goals assigned to that RFP, I guess is what we're calling it, Madam Clerk. So we weren't looking at any particular percentage for involvement of minority and women accounting firms.
Kim participated on the selection committee. What was?
So there was not. I believe that had to do with the limited number of firms that would have the capability to conduct an engagement like this. What I was referencing was the firm that was ranked as number one does have minority participation.
So in other words, the firm that was selected can voluntarily include minority or women subcontractors to assist with this auditing. And that's in fact what you're saying that
Yes, Chair.
they plan to do?
Yes, Chairman, they stated that in their proposal that they would have, I think, 300 out of 2,700 hours would be allocated to that particular firm.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
on point
Commissioner
to what-
Maddox.
On point to what you just asked about, I actually, when I walked out a second ago, asked Mr. Bowers whether our professional services contracts have MWBE aspirational goals, and he said that they do. And so I'm guessing, like you said, Madam Chair, based off of the amount of firms that were able to do the work, that piece wasn't in this contract, but on a traditional aspect, we do have MWB aspirational goals as a part of our professional services contracts as well. I'm very glad to hear that Thomas Howell Ferguson found a minority to come in and perform as a sub for those 300 hours. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. So I'm going to call the motion we have. The motion on the floor is for option 1. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. I'm sorry, it's the substitute motion. The substitute motion is for approval of option 1. So all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. 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 Those opposed?
Nay.
So we've got 2 nays, Commissioner O'Keefe and Commissioner Caban. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I know we passed you've taken
Commissioner
a vote,
Proctor?
Madam Chair, but I ponder, because there's no breakdown to your question of exactly how many points that the last place person received for WMBE, and the breakdown of the score does not show us the elemental components. At least it excludes that. And even though we have the local preference thingy, there's, I don't see how we factor points for what seems to be a woman, I guess that's a woman's name that came in fourth place. So that's important to us. When we lift that up, you raise it. I would love to see a female business become the auditor. I better stop right there because, you know, women will ask you some questions. I'm gonna pull up on that right there. But that would be tough, you know, to come in here and get asked all these questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Okay, I believe that concludes our consent agenda, Mr. County Administrator.
It does, Madam Chair.
And now we're on general business. I believe item 17.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item number 17, Commissioners, is the after-action report from the May 10th, 2024 tornadoes. Commissioners, I know that we are probably all experiencing more than a little tornado information overload by now with all the updates and the reports that have been provided to you already. But this item, and we won't take very long with this item, but it is one that's very important. Yes. Thank you. But it is very important in that our after-action reports, they're something that obviously we here at the county put a tremendous emphasis on because the findings and recommendations of these reports, of course, Commissioners, as you all know, ensure that we continue to be in a continuous process of becoming more prepared and resilient for the next emergency. In summary, Commissioners, the after-action report from the May 10th tornadoes includes 23 findings, 25 recommendations, all included in your materials. That brings our total findings to over 300 in just the past couple of emergency activations. These, of course, upon your approval, Commissioners, get incorporated into our response and readiness policies and protocols. The item also, Commissioners, addresses the CAT Fund with both policy recommendations as well as shoring up the CAT Fund budget so that we're prepared for the current hurricane season, as well as other information that was requested by the board. Finally, Commissioners, of course, our recovery efforts are still underway. FEMA has been doing a great job, and I know that they're represented here in the audience today. To date, nearly $4 million in federal assistance has been approved for households with over 400 residents now being served by FEMA's IA program. As I said, Commissioners, I know you've already received a lot of information. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. And again, the recommendations herein, upon your approval, will continue to ensure that we put the community and the county organization in the best position as possible to plan for, respond to, and recover from future emergencies. And with that, Madam Chair, we're recommending options 1, 2, and 3, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. County Administrator.
So moved.
Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Is there a second? Commissioner Minor.
Madam
And
Chair,
before we get into discussions about this particular item, I want to recognize our FEMA representatives that are here. I'm not sure how long they will be here for our meeting today. Will you all please, and it's hard for me to recognize that. Will you all come forward? Oh, awesome. I met some of you all personally, but I want the commission and our county administrator and our Leon County residents to just recognize you all and just thank you all for all of the work that you all have done in the face of the devastation here in Leon County. Can we give them a round of applause? Would you all like to have something to say briefly? Yes, sir, please. If you'll identify yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Kevin Peters, Director of Emergency Management here with Leon County.
Oh, that is, Mr.
Yeah, I haven't had a tie the last couple of times. I apologize for that. I just wanted to, a couple things about FEMA. There are over 88 active declared disasters across the nation. I believe there's about 12 or 13 pending disaster declarations with FEMA at Washington, D.C. in their headquarters office. So the team is stretched all across the nation and working hard. But I just wanted to say that we're very happy to have the folks here with us. The branch director here, Quinn Rome, is actually a retired county emergency management director, one of my mentors that I've been able to look to over the years. We have Josie, who's our intergovernmental affairs, who I believe some of you had a chance to meet. Alicia, who I just met today, who's our individual assistant subject matter expert, and Sarah, who is what we would call our division soup. All of these folks are here to help us navigate through any of the FEMA program and processes, and they represent the team in the field. I just wanted to just highlight the relationship that I had with Quinn and the FEMA team to let you know that emergency management from the local to federal level we're well plugged in.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Of course, he's our local person. We thank you so much for all your hard work and your coordination. Would you all, our FEMA representatives, would you all have like to say something briefly?
I'll go first, I guess. I just want to say thank you for having us here today. We've got over 94 people here in the greater Tallahassee, Leon County working on this disaster. We've got 2 disaster recovery centers open. There's many ways to register, but we really want everybody who has any impacts or believes they may have an impact to please register. You can go to one of our disaster recovery centers, which is at the library here, or at the running track off of Apalachicola. So please register. Please, we're here to help, and anything we can do to answer your questions or any others, we'll be glad to.
Thank you so much.
He kind of said it all, so.
He said it all?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's give them another round of applause. Thank you all for the $4 million. And it's growing, and they're encouraging our citizens to continue to apply because they certainly want to help, and you really made a great impact on our county, our community, so thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I might, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is an unusual presentation. The presence of 94 FEMA workers, employees here integrated with Mr. Peters' shop. This gives us the comprehensive essence that heretofore we've not really fully had. We pick up limbs off the tree and pick up limbs out of people's yards. but to have 94-foot soldiers with clipboards and assessing and going through the community, having a human component on the ground certainly expands and adds dimension to our emergency area. And I think that this is a huge footprint. It expands, it incorporates a care net to a broader segment of our community. And I think that this is incredible. I'm very, very appreciative. The first email that text message that I got this morning was from the picnic that I went to, and it was asking to please remember to check on FEMA for me and provide information so I can apply for assistance. And I tried hard to tell the people at the picnic that y'all were here and what to do. And the true truth is, I lost y'all card. And if I could get another card, I'd be grateful. I talked about you, I bragged, but then I didn't have a card to back it up. So Rachel, if you please get a card, get their card so I can at least, respond to this constituent. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, FEMA.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Any other comments about our FEMA representatives briefly? Yes, Commissioner Caban.
Madam Chair, real quick, I just want to say a few things. One, I want to again thank our Leon County team and the county administrator. I know during the May 10th tornadoes, I'm sure Vince was sick of getting my phone calls, but we talked frequently throughout the day. And I do just want to make a point / make a question. During the storms, we had instrumental help by the state of Florida. And again, I do want to say something. Storms are nonpartisan, right? Helping people are nonpartisan. Right. And I do just want to give a thank you to the governor and Florida Department of Emergency Management, DCF, Secretary Harris, Florida Department of Transportation. They were pretty instrumental in working with our Leon County team on Friday night and implementing the food and water distribution centers that served thousands of people across Leon County and affected areas. And so I do just want to give a sincere thank you. Additionally, I think it's important as we move forward and as we utilize the CAT fund and prep for future storms, Mr. Administrator, that do we have our own water and food reserves? Like, do we have an emergency management to where if there is a localized weather event, that there is not a state of emergency where we have the ability to pop up food and water distribution pretty quickly?
Madam Chair, we do, and Kevin will have to back me up on this. We do, but it's relatively limited. The best practice really from a logistical standpoint is utilize the system that's in place now, which has centralized hubs and can get food where it needs to go very quickly on a decentralized sort of basis. But Kevin, you can further explain that.
Yes, sir. And through our partnerships with our local entities like Second Harvest, they do have a supply for disaster response and emergency response. The state of Florida's system where they have the centralized warehouse, and now moving to, I believe, Auburndale, Polk County area from Orlando. They also have a smaller warehouse here in Leon County with a supply. So, there's, as the county administrator mentioned, numerous hubs to the logistics network that work very well. They've supplied small-scale disasters all across the state.
Madam Chair, may I? Director Peters, so how many, do we have like a number, let's say that there was another weather event very similar to what we had in the past. Let's say Friday tornadoes come in, our rural communities don't have power. Low-income rural communities don't have power. Those folks can't pump water where their wells with no power. Do we have a number or like are we able to put up a similar distribution center overnight to what we had in May 10th and 11th? I guess a concern of mine is, let's say there's not a state of emergency and it's just a localized Leon County emergency. I want to make sure that we have the ability to pop up food and water distributions to help our rural communities as well.
We have planned Madam Chair, if I may, we do have the planned sites in the rural locations, understanding that Talquin Electric provides the power, and many of the residents are, as you said, on well water. We have those distribution sites pre-identified, and it's a matter of contacting the State Division of Emergency Management. They're available 24 hours a day. Some call their state watch office. We have a regional coordinator also for response that we work with day in and day out. So we have multiple ways to access the state resources. It's a phone call from us when we have that type of situation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your service, and thank you for all your help on May 10th.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, and thank you, Mr. Peters, for all you've done. Okay, the motion on the floor is staff recommendations, options 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, thank you all so much. Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 18, and I'll go quickly, Commissioners. I know you're trying to get to item 19, but obviously an important item here. It seeks your consideration of 2 additional programs to enhance safety and maintenance of private roads in the unincorporated area of the county. Commissioners, I know you're familiar with this. It's been something that's been advanced by Commissioner Caban and embraced by the board and elevated as one of your retreat priorities. In addition to the 4 existing programs you had, you directed us to see if there were any additional programs that we could put in place. And the item before you recommends 2. With all the information and analysis that's before you now, which we're happy to go into greater detail on if the board would like, but both programs meet all the strict legal requirements for expending funds on private roads, and again, just afford another 2 options that are available to our citizens in the county who happen to live on private roads. And again, happy to answer any more questions about this, but we're recommending options 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. County Administrator.
And we have no speakers on this item.
No speakers on the item. I'd like to entertain a motion. Commissioners, Commissioner Caban.
I'd like to move staff recommendation options 1 and 2.
Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Minor and then Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the motion on the floor. Just real quick, though, the extension of the program that would include repaving for private roads, where the neighbors pay the county to perform that service or to basically oversee that service being done by contractors. The liability for that, what type of liability might we have for that? Let's say we manage the repaving of the road, but then for whatever reason, the resurfacing doesn't meet standards, does not accommodate what the road needs. How does it work with liability on that piece?
Madam Attorney, or Mr. County Administrator.
That was discussed in developing these programs. Really, fundamentally, our only responsibility in that particular, we will have a contractual relationship because we're going to be managing the project for the repaving. And we would have to ensure that there are sufficient safeguards in the contract to ensure that there is some sort of a warranty on the work, so that if for some reason the quality of the work does not stand the test of time, we have recourse to go back to the contractor and request either compensation for us to fix it or have another contractor fix it or have them fix it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to ask the board to hopefully would have your support of this in unanimity. I also want to give a big shout out to the county administrator and public works. I know you guys worked hand in hand on this for a very long time to kind of thread the needle on something that was fair to taxpayers, but also helped folks in our community that live on private roads that are having issues. This is probably the single most constituent complaint that our office receives in regards to private roads. And I think that there are a lot of folks that live on private roads, bought homes on private roads, didn't realize that they bought a home on a private road till they moved in, and one day they wake up and can't drive on the road, and then they call our office and say, hey, I'm sorry, there's not much we can really do about it. But most importantly, what I'm the most proud of is the culture change from staff, based on just that I've seen in the last 2 years. And once again, I want to credit the county administrator with that. We've seen more and more public works getting out and helping folks with their roads that have been washed away during storms or impassable. And I'm just really proud to be a part of an organization that's taking a step forward in our initiatives to help folks that need it. So thank you again, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Caban. We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none is unanimous. Thank you so much. Commissioners, we're now on item number 19. Mr. County Administrator, do we have speakers on that item? Do you know how many?
We do. I think we've got about 16 or 17 speakers.
Okay, and we have public hearings that are scheduled for 6 o'clock. Commissioners, I'd like for us, and we have, I know, that many speakers in the audience. So I'd like for us to go as far as we can on this particular item, in consideration of those speakers that are here. So, Mr. County Administrator, I know you have a presentation. Do you want to do that first, and then we hear the speakers?
Sure. With that, Madam Chair, I'll skip my introduction and hand it right over to Artie in the interest of time, and then we'll go to speakers, then hand it back to the board.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This item brings back information that you requested at your last meeting regarding the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway, information about the designated Canopy Road, as well as information about the access easements that exist along the Greenway and roads that are proposed to have those access easements. I have a brief presentation that I'll go through, kind of hit the high points of the agenda materials, looking at kind of those 4 access easements, the history of them, kind of why they're there, history of the Canopy Roads program in Leon County. Many of the protections that are in place are outlined in your agenda materials, information about the roadway and the crossing requirements, citizen engagement that has happened on kind of multiple fronts, the Dempsey Mayo crossing specifically and the design of that, the consideration of a new overlay district as was proposed by the Friends of the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway, as well as some key questions that we're aware of and key findings when we looked at those a little bit closer. So starting off, there are 4 access easements along the Miccosukee Greenway. These are legally established access easements located at Dempsey Mayo Road, Edenfield Road, Arundel Way, and Shamrock South Extension. I will note that a number of years ago, the city actually looked at trying to transfer the easement from Arundel to Thornton Road. They were looking at ways to protect existing neighborhoods, reduce the impact to canopy, kind of many other benefits that would have occurred through that transfer. And the state simply said, we're not really interested in taking this up, and ended the conversation. So the access easement is not at Thornton Road, it's still at Arundel Way. These access easements also predate the establishment of the Greenway. And so I think that's kind of important to know that these aren't things that the Greenway was there and then the access easements were put on top of it. These access easements were put in place and then the Greenway was created. And these access easements are recorded in the property deed. They're reflected in the Miccosukee Canopy Road Management Plan, and they're also reflected in the Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan. When we look at canopy roads in our community, Leon County has a very long history of protecting canopy roads. The Canopy Roads program goes back to 1972, when the first canopy roads were designated in this community, including Miccosukee Road. That was part of the original canopy roads that were designated. That was in 1972. When we kind of fast forward to 1975, it was decided that, instead of just designating it, we should do something to protect these. At that time, a protection area of about 35 feet was put into place. That was later expanded to 50 feet in 1982, and then in 1992, some more regulations were put in place. The canopy protection zone was established at 100 feet from the center line of the road. So over time, Leon County has designated these roads, and then they've looked at ways to protect the canopy and those unique features along these designated canopy roads. When we look at what those protections are, we can go to the Land Development Code where we see the information about what does it mean to have a canopy protection zone. Again, currently the regulations are 100 feet from the center line of the road. So that's the area we're talking about when we're talking about the canopy road zone. There are some pretty significant protections in place for canopy roads. First, it basically prohibits any development, any structures in that canopy road zone, so 100 feet from the center of that road. There are only a few very specific exceptions to that, and that's any structure that's needed for life safety, which is a pretty high bar. Fences that predated the regulations, so if you have a fence that predated the regulations, you can maintain and repair that, so that's allowed. Structures that keep motor vehicles from getting on the trail. Again, that kind of goes to that life safety sort of thing, but that's specifically called out as an exemption. And if you cannot do anything else with your property, basically, there's no other way because that 100 feet takes up so much of your property that you can't do something, then there's an opportunity to kind of go through the process and look and see. But again, those are all very high bars. Otherwise, no development, no structures are allowed in that canopy road zone. And structures include fences. So unless it's an existing fence that predated the regulations, not even a new fence. The Land Development Code also has additional protections. So if a development is proposed and is going to occur along the canopy road, they have to submit an analysis of what their impacts would be to the canopy road. There are a lot of limitations on driveways and access to sites. So if you have an existing access, that's pretty much, you're limited to it. If you're a new development and there's an opportunity to have shared or joint access, you kind of have to do that. And if you can have access to a different road that's not a canopy road, then you're not allowed to have an access to the canopy road. So you're kind of stuck with accessing something else, no new access to the canopy road. And then there are other regulations that require replantings and mitigation if there are impacts to a designated canopy road. So these are pretty stringent, pretty significant protections for our designated canopy roads. And that's well intended because we want to protect these resources. When we look at the Greenway itself, the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway, there are a number of protections there as well. When we look at the future land use map in our comprehensive plan, the Greenway is designated recreation open space. What that means is there are strict limitations on what can be done on that property. Recreation open space, as you would assume, pretty much limits any allowable use to passive recreation, silviculture, that's the growing of trees and kind of forestry activities, and active recreations only in areas that are within the urban service area. So we're looking at trees and we're looking at recreation. There are additional protections in place based on the ownership and management of the Greenway. So when we look at the Greenway, it is owned by the state of Florida. That gives it certain statutory protections. It's owned by a government entity. We're not going to be developing this. This is not going to become housing or something like that. It's not going to become businesses, retail, office. It's going to be trees and recreation. The property is leased from the state of Florida by Leon County, so that affords additional protections, many of that being all of you. And then there's a management plan for the Greenway that's updated every 10 years. And this looks at a number of things. It looks at invasive species and capital projects like trailheads and looking at hydrology and improvements that need to be made there. So what all this means is the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway is going to be used for Greenway purposes, and it is and will continue to be well managed by Leon County. When we zoom out a little bit and look at the areas around the Canopy Road and around the Greenway, we see the effects of many decades of very intentional planning. When we look at what's allowed adjacent to the Greenway south of I-10, the comprehensive plan is very specific that the only allowable uses adjacent to the Greenway are more open space and in some instances, very low density and low density residential. So they cannot put apartment complexes, they cannot put commercial uses, they can't put office uses adjacent to the Greenway. It is open space and it is low density residential. When we look north of I-10, those intentional planning that's gone into it provide even more protections for the Greenway. When we adopted the Welaunee Arch Master Plan, we put in provisions largely based on those Welaunee charrettes that we did and the public input that we heard. This says adjacent to the canopy protection zone, that CPZ for Canopy Road, there can only be an additional 75 feet of open space. So we're basically taking the canopy protection zone north of I-10 on Miccosukee and adding even almost doubling it in size in a way. Additionally, kind of looking at that Welaunee area, the Welaunee Greenway is going to add over 8 miles of additional trails and greenways to the existing Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway. So we're looking at not only adding more buffers and more open space around the Greenway and the canopy protection zone, but increasing the size of the Greenway because the Miccosukee Greenway, the Miccosukee Greenway will connect with the Welaunee Greenway. When we look at those access points, those 4 access easements, and then the road crossings that would occur therein, there are specific standards that have to be met, and the roadway crossings will meet or exceed Florida Department of Transportation standards and specifications, which in turn meet the federal requirements or exceed them. As I mentioned, because of the canopy protection zone, there are requirements in there to protect the canopy, to limit the impacts to the canopy, and when any impacts occur, to do the replantings and mitigate those impacts. When we look at Dempsey Mayo specifically, there are a number of things that are included in those standards and specifications and actually exceed the standards. We're looking at 2 11-foot travel lanes. Typically for this kind of facility, you might actually see 12-foot travel lanes, but by reducing them to 11 feet, you actively encourage slower traffic as well as less impact. I'll have curb and gutter, a 12-foot multi-use trail on one side. And so what this does is provide multimodal connectivity kind of to the area. So it provides a way for people who are in surrounding areas to not have to drive to the Greenway, but to be able to take a multi-use trail to the Greenway. Or if you're on the Greenway and you want to go into one of the developments in the surrounding area, you have that trail to get into it. So it really provides that multimodal connectivity that we're looking for. A 5-foot sidewalk on the opposite side. Typically, you would have a minimum of 2 feet separation between a trail or a sidewalk and the road, but to increase the comfort for pedestrians and people using those trails and the sidewalks, we're looking at a 6.5-foot separation. So this puts people using those facilities further away from the traffic. And then typically you would see about a 35-mile-per-hour speed posted here. Given the context of it and being sensitive to that, the speed is reduced to 20. And in fact, when you're at the roundabout, it would be down to 30. And then when you're at the roundabout, it would be down to 20. So already kind of taking that into account and lowering that speed limit there. When we look at the crossing of the Greenway, there are a number of things that are kind of built into that. The crossing would be raised. And so that's probably one of the most significant things you can do for traffic calming and to increase safety for the users of the Greenway. User-activated flashing lights to really draw attention as people are coming from the roundabout up to the Greenway, which is not that far of a distance. You aware when someone is crossing and using the Greenway. Signage and pavement markings, those are always required, but kind of really looking at the best way to do that, as well as traffic calming in general. You know, we want people to be a little bit slower, a little bit more cognizant of people using the Greenway. A couple of things that are not required or just not feasible. Preventing the roadway crossings. Looking at that, you know, if there's a way to say, you know, let's not just build a road at all. But those existing access easements provide legal entitlements for those roadway crossings. And again, those predated the creation of the Greenway. Looking at a bridge or underpass or a tunnel, that was something that was considered. and deemed not feasible because of the excess impacts to the tree canopy, environmental impacts, stormwater drainage issues. That was actually a pretty significant one because the area is so flat here, doesn't have the grade. Any kind of tunnel that would be built would have pretty significant stormwater drainage issues. Long or zigzagging access ramps. Again, we'd have to provide connectivity, especially for the people on that multi-use trail or the sidewalk to get to the Greenway, or people from the Greenway to get up to those facilities. We would be looking at about 450 feet would be the length of the access ramp. That would exceed the amount of right-of-way in those access easements. It would also have more impact to the canopy, so that would be a pretty significant impact to more trees. Security concerns about people going through a tunnel, as well as really just kind of limited safety improvements compared to the alternative, especially when you take into account the raised crossings, the flashing lights, things like that, and cost is a consideration as well. When we look at the way we engage citizens and the citizen engagement kind of on all of these areas, the canopy roads, the Greenway, the roadway, there are a number of ways that their citizens are involved. For canopy roads, going back to 1991, there's been a Canopy Road Citizens Committee. This is an advisory committee, so they serve in an advisory capacity to the board and city commission, and helpful resource to staff as well. And they'll evaluate, one of their responsibilities also, kind of going back to the history of canopy roads, is evaluating proposals for new canopy roads. And so, from 1972, when the original canopy roads were designated, there have been others added to it. Specifically for Dempsey Mayo Road Extension, there was an ad hoc focus group that was put together and met multiple times between 2018 and 2021 to provide input on the design. That's actually where some of those enhancements above and beyond the standards came from. Looking at the raised crossing, looking at the flashing beacons, things like that. Really, we're actually with the design of Dempsey Mayo as well, having that additional space between the road and the shared use path or the multi-use trail and the sidewalk. Also ideas that came out of that ad hoc group. The Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway Management Plan, as I mentioned, is updated every 10 years. It's actually currently in the process of being updated. And as you probably recall, this board appointed citizens to be on that committee. And then just generally, the planning process is a very public process, whether it's meetings or things like the Walani charrettes that we did that resulted in, as I mentioned a moment ago, adding the 75 feet of open space adjacent to the canopy protection zone. That came out of that public process. So, and then public hearings are always public as well. So as you can see, we don't just do the public engagement for the sake of doing public engagement. It actually has tangible benefits that we see in the design now of these facilities, as well as the long-range planning in the area. The Dempsey Mayo crossings, the current status, the corridor will extend from the existing Dempsey Mayo Road from Miccosukee Road to Centerville and intersect Walani Boulevard along the way. That's intentional. One of the goals of this and of the Walani Boulevard project is actually to take traffic off of the designated canopy roads and move it to this facility. And this helps accomplish that. The design is completed, and the intersection of Miccosukee and Dempsey Mayo needed a little additional right-of-way to be acquired. Once that right-of-way is acquired by the developer, then the permits are basically ready to go. And then the construction may begin once the permits are issued. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'll just kind of reiterate it, the public engagement in the design of Dempsey Mayo Road, 7 meetings between 2018 and 2021. Those meetings include trail users, people from Westminster, school, utility service providers, the developer, and as well as city and county staff, because it does cross jurisdictions. And then the feedback that we got brought about several enhancements to the road itself as well as the crossing. The next steps, again, Ox Bottom Holdings is in the process now of acquiring that right-of-way. The permit is ready to be issued once the right-of-way is acquired. Construction of Dempsey Mayo north of Miccosukee can begin as soon as that permit is required because it doesn't require any additional road closings. And then the roundabout would be a little bit later just to avoid impacts to traffic resulting from the school. And again, based on the public input and that process, the trail crossing includes signage, pavement markings, the flashing lights, raised trail crossings, and traffic calming. At the last meeting, there was consideration to creating a new overlay district, the Miccosukee Greenway Canopy Road Protection Corridor Overlay. Kind of looking at that request, it was intended to do basically three things. Protect the canopy roads, protect the greenway, and influence the roadway design and pedestrian safety. When we looked at that, there's really nothing new that this would do that's not already in place. As I mentioned, we have protections for canopy roads through that designation as a canopy road, through comprehensive plan and land development code, through the Canopy Road Systems Advisory Committee, and through those additional land use plannings and the buffers and the additional open space that we provided. Greenway protections, again, it's publicly owned land. It has a management plan and is designated recreation open space on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan that gives it those additional safety measures there. And then the roadway design and pedestrian enhancement, meeting and exceeding the design standards, engineering best practices, the public engagement that resulted in additional features being added. We've heard key concerns from the community, really looking at limiting conflicts between trail users and the roadway users. Anytime you bring different modes of transportation together, there's sometimes the potential for some friction there. But we're using engineering best practices and those enhancements that I mentioned to the trail crossing to improve safety and limit the conflicts. There was discussion and a lot of interest in using a bridge or a tunnel, overpass or underpass. And based on the engineering evaluation of it, not really a feasible option at this place. Where it is feasible, we do try to do that. An example of that is there's a tunnel planned for the Wulani Greenway at Shamrock. The reason that it's feasible there is there's a significant topography change, and so you would actually put the tunnel kind of through that without having the same kind of drainage issues and other things that you would have at this location because it's very flat. So, it's not that we didn't consider a tunnel or a bridge. It's just that when we looked at it, it was not a feasible option because of those additional impacts as well as more impacts to the canopy. Protecting canopy roads in the Greenway, I think I kind of covered that pretty sufficiently. Citizen engagement, multiple opportunities through different avenues, whether it's formal advisory committees, ad hoc groups, as well as stakeholder meetings and public hearings. And then long-range planning. Again, we've been planning this area for decades, going back to the adoption of the comprehensive plan in 1990. Identified this area as a place for growth and looking at the land use and the transportation in the area with specific considerations for both protecting and enhancing the canopy road and the greenway as much as possible. So in summary, key findings, there are the 4 access easements legally established that provide crossings along the greenway. There are significant protections that exist for both the canopy road and the greenway. There's very intentional planning that has gone into enhancing the greenway and the canopy road with the additional buffers and open space. Dempsey Mayo extension designed to meet or exceed the requirements and standards. The crossing of the greenway itself, incorporating enhancements for pedestrian safety and to limit and mitigate any friction or conflicts there. The 3 remaining crossings, in addition to the Dempsey Mayo, would have those same kind of considerations, same protections put in place, and a new Miccosukee Canopy Road and Greenway Protection Corridor overlay would not add any additional protections that are not already in place. And so the staff recommendation on this item is option 1, to accept the status report on the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway and designated canopy road protections.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll go to speakers. Thank you, Artie. And of course, after the speakers, commissioners will be available for any questions you might have. First speaker, Rob Lombardo.
Madam Chair, Mr. Administrator, how many speakers do you have?
18.
18. Thank you, sir.
Well, I guess you probably know that I'm not going to try to stand up here and in 3 minutes refute everything that Artie just said. Okay. But let me start with hoping that you understand the role that the citizens actually play. I mean, we're not here to overwhelm you with facts, 20 minutes worth of presentation, some of which have words in it that I have never seen before. I have been an active member of this organization, the Friends of the Miccosukee Greenway, since 1995. I helped set up the Parks and Recreation Department. There are people in this room who are in their 70s and 80s that actually worked on that Greenway. So let me continue. It is really ironic that even though staff present the years of careful planning that went into the development of the canopy roads and greenways, they have completely ignored the fact that there is massive development about to happen in the next 10 years. The development has already started. You have seen the flooding. This was all planned by the same people that just gave you that presentation, okay? We have hydrology problems that have never been fixed, okay? And this is what we're talking about. The citizens keep complaining. We keep being told that it's being taken care of, and it's not. I urge you to not accept this report and instead choose board direction and enact Board Policy 95.5, which is your ordinance drafting and set in motion a revision of the Canopy Road ordinance that we then can sit around the table and discuss this and actually have a chance to talk directly to Artie, okay? The current ordinance, which some of you probably have never seen, has a very specific item called special considerations. You, as the board of Leon County, can exercise that right to conclude these special considerations. They have never been used, as far as I know, and I've been watching this for 25 years. They have never been used in this discussion up until tonight. So, if you want to take the opportunity to improve the standards by which roadways and intersections are created and designed along these canopy roads, then you will look at this ordinance and find in it the opportunities that we found, which was that you set the rules instead of all the developers, the designers who are out there. Okay. I urge you to reject this report. As we talked about, have a conversation about this, have a discussion. And if it falls on the citizens to actually withdraw from this discussion entirely, then let us do it at least with some kind of opportunity to sit around a table and make that discussion happen. Thank you very much.
Eric Draper.
Madam Chair, if I might say, I know we have a lot of speakers. A lot of those speakers have just signed up because they wanted to say a few words. They don't have to come to the podium and speak. They're fine with not doing that. And but there are people that have some points of view that you need to hear. So at some point we can, finish with this a little early. And but what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, all the supporters that have come tonight who hoped to have some discussion on this subject, if you would stand up, please.
Thank you.
These are your constituents.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Lombardi. What we'll do is we'll still call each name and they can opt at that time to waive their discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric Draper, to be followed by Sue Noyes.
Thank you very much. I'll try and be brief so that other people can also speak. I am Eric Draper, 3627 Dexter Drive.
I'm representative of Capital City Cyclists, and for the record, I'm also chair of the Miccosukee Canopy Road Greenway Management Plan Advisory Committee. I'm not speaking in that context tonight, although Artie did reference some of the organization's work. I'm also going to urge you to not accept the staff proposal. I'm going to recommend that you do that because I think there's things that were left out of that. And with all respect to Artie's presentation, that was 20 minutes of we did a good job, we've looked at everything, but I don't think you've looked at everything, and I'm just going to cover a couple things here very quickly. First of all, the conclusion that this park has to be crossed by a major collector road, you need to think about that when you need to just go back and re-examine that question, because there's nothing in those easements that said it had to be a major collector road. Sure, the existence density Mayo is, but that's not what the easement actually says. You could have built a farm road through there with that and complied with the easement. That road then, the logic that the county's using is that that collector road has to be these 11-foot lanes. It has to be a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. That doesn't have to be the case. You know, over in Pensacola, where we just had this terrible disaster, the city has stepped in and they narrowed the lanes down to 10 feet. Narrower lanes slow traffic. The traffic engineers call it friction. And you create that friction and people drive slower. You put a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on a road that's got 11-foot lanes, trucks, delivery vehicles. By the way, last year, your minute said 7,500 cars a day going through there, 7,500 cars a day. You're going to have a lot of speeding people. Flashing lights, yellow flashing lights, and speed humps don't necessarily protect someone's crossing the road. You're going through the park, you're having a nice time, you're on your bike, you're strolling your children, you're walking, you're running, and you stop, you look both ways, you're trying to guess whether or not that car that's 400 feet away and is coming out of that roundabout at 20 miles an hour or up that way is going to slow down, you know, in compliance with that flashing yellow light. Well, folks, it doesn't always happen. You are creating an unsafe road through a popular park. Stop for a minute, take a look at this. You don't need a 30-mile-an-hour road. You don't need 11-foot wide lanes. Design can create a lot of safety problems that are created by reckless drivers. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that everybody else gets a chance to speak tonight, too, because I think people are very passionate about this.
Sue Noyes, to be followed by Ann Bidlingmeyer.
Thank you, Commissioners, for giving me an opportunity to speak before you again on this issue. I just want to start with saying, as you prepare to make a decision on how you will vote on item 19, please consider that the road extensions concerned with it are not ordinary road extensions. Those go through city, county, and private land. The road extensions concerned with item 19 go through state-owned conservation land and impact a protected canopy road. The first road, soon to be developed, contains a roundabout for the canopy road, and access to the trail crossing to the Greenway is over-designed, with no consideration whatsoever given to the equestrian use. This Greenway belongs to all the citizens of Florida, and you are charged with managing it to the best of your ability, as well as protecting our canopy road. To honor the canopy road and this conservation land, which is set aside for people and wildlife, different road designs or alternatives are needed rather than the procedures used for regular road extensions. Citizens need to be involved in the planning and design of these proposed roads to help ensure Leon County does all it can to protect the Canopy Road and Greenway and thus fulfill their commitments. Please choose option 3 and create the proposed work group so that a special protection corridor can be established for this 6.6 miles of the Miccosukee Greenway to assure Leon County does the best job it can. Thank you very much.
Ann Bidlingmeyer to be followed by Ruth Chase.
Ann Bidlingmeyer, 1920 Harriet Drive. I worked for decades in local environmental issues. I initiated the county's environmental and tree ordinance back in the early 80s, and then I was appointed by the city to help write the city's tree and landscape ordinance. I was on the original Milani Advisory Board back in about 2002. I was an original member of the Friends of the Miccosukee Greenway back in 98, I guess. And for 6 years, I was chair of the Canopy Road Citizens Committee. During that time, Blairstone Road was being considered, and our committee sent it back to the engineers numerous times saying, please think outside the box. Come back with something that we can live with. The result of Blairstone Road has been very favorable. I think it's a good road, but we really asked the staff to come back with something much better. And county staff can do the same thing with Dempsey Mayo. They need to think outside the box. That design of the roundabout is not appropriate for the area. I strongly urge you to reject the adoption of this report and to use the citizens who have institutional memory and experience to help you design and come up with something that's feasible. And you all need to do this yourselves, not just turn it over to staff. I think we've seen staff overstep its boundaries right here. So we need to preserve the character of the Greenway and not turn it into a chain of parks like we have downtown. And we need to make sure that the linear aspect of the park remains. So please reject this report. I was listening to this, and it's something that I have not really heard of. Not these words, not the words that our citizens groups have been using. So I think this would be a travesty to go ahead and go forward as though everything is hunky-dory, everything's going to be fine, because that's not the way it's going to be. Thank you.
Ruth Chase to be followed by Dana Stockton, I believe. Dana Stockton or Stockston, I apologize if I, okay, thank you.
My name is Dana Stetson, and I've been a resident of Leon County since 1978. I have run the Miccosukee Greenway hundreds of times, so I'm well aware of what is normal and abnormal along the Greenway. And this new flooding has never existed for any length of time ever. It is 100% the fault and responsibility of the property owner uphill, who has built way too many units, covered up too much of the topsoil. This is an obvious cause and effect of overbuilding. The present county commissioner cannot be held accountable for allowing this. But, however, we could use this moment to pause building and consider mitigation responsibilities that actually work. This is only going to get much worse with more building. Everyone can see that. The time is now to deal with problems proactively. I'm asking you to address this challenge. Thank you.
Jerry McDaniel to be followed by Mary Kay Faulkner.
Good afternoon, Jerry McDaniel. I am president of the Gulf Winds Track Club.
The Gulf Winds Track Club presently has 750 families, 1,300 members. Just about all these folks, including myself, use the Greenway frequently. I'm on it twice a week, routinely. I'm concerned, as Dana is, with the flooding issue, but the issue at hand are the roads and the design of the roads. The four easements, my constituents are very much opposed, recognizing that they are legally already embedded in the deed. My constituents are opposed to these road crossings. When I last checked, I believe all four crossings will occur maybe within 3 miles of each other. These greenways are beautiful. They serve your community quite well. It'll destroy the character of the users of the Greenway if you start running roads across it. Already just presented, the Greenways were designed to recreate on and trees. Well, now you're going to have trees, recreation amongst cars going across 4 different crossings within 3 miles. If any of you have ever used it, you come down from Fleischman, it's very, very steep. You're going to have kids on bicycles having to stop at multiple places, especially if all these easements occur. It's going to be, it'll destroy the character, the way it looks, and just not be Greenway-like. You've got a beautiful picture out in the lobby now of the Alford Greenway. People love running on them, bicycle on them. I do the same. If this item is deferred or fails, we would propose taking a hard look at the roads and the easements, and if they have to occur, if roads have to occur, if this road has to occur across the Greenway, we would advocate an elevated roadway. I think the staff work on this item suggested what would carry the Greenway users in an elevated way over the surface road. What we would propose, and I know it would come at a cost, what we would propose is an elevated roadway, thereby the Greenway users could continue using the Greenway as it currently is used. And they would not have, there would be no safety factors involved. It would come at a cost, we recognize that. Should the surface road become necessary, we would advocate for a lower classification road to slow the speeds, reduce the width of the roadways, thereby slowing traffic. Thank you very much.
Mary Kay Falconer, to be followed by Meg Bates.
Mary Kay Falconer, 2140 Armistead Road. I think at this point, I am totally against approval of the status report. I appreciate receiving it with stimulating reading over the July 4th holiday, and I appreciate the commissioners bringing this item to the agenda for this meeting. My concerns are similar to what's just been mentioned by a couple of these people. Safety certainly is the biggest concern, developing standards that are appropriate for the Greenway. And again, some things that I already had mentioned, the 11-foot wide lanes are not necessary. It can be 10 feet wide. And I'm going to give you an example of a road that is 10 feet wide lanes. It's Benton Road. It handles a lot of traffic every day. We did a redesign of that road back in '21. The speeds that were mentioned, I thought that Charles Wu had told me 25 miles an hour. I didn't know it was 30. I think you mentioned that in a presentation a few weeks ago. But I just think that speed is too high for this particular extension, the Dempsey-Mayo extension. The crosswalks themselves, we know the dangers that they present. What's been done, of course, with the flashing lights, the elevated road for that crossing, that part of the crossing of that part of the road. There's more that needs to be done with that. We had a real serious incident on the Benton Road after the redesign. A child was hit, wound up on the hood of a car. So things happen at those crosswalks, and we need to prevent, to the extent possible, any of those types of incidences. The aesthetics of this, I think, are really deserving more attention. I don't know how many trees are actually going to be cut down. When I was over there walking through the corridor the other day, I still saw the pink tags on the trees, and I didn't know if that was going to be those chopped down for this purpose or preserved for mitigation purposes. So I'd like to know more about that. I'd also like to know more about the Hickory Hill Cemetery and what's planned for that particular location on the Dempsey Mayo extension. The roundabout itself, I don't have real strong opinions on that, but children that are going to be using the multi-use path will probably not be safe going across the east side of that roundabout. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And before we get to our next speaker, let me just say we have 7 public hearings that have been noticed that we have to do at 6 o'clock. So if there are any speakers that just want to rely on what others have said, that's fine, but we'll continue to call each one, but we have public hearings at 6, and we'll probably break a little before that. Thank you.
The next speaker, Meg Bates, to be followed by Marcia Neal.
Yeah, my name is Meg Bates. I live in Waverly Hills, have done so for close to 40 years. I'm going to take about 20 seconds to say I confirm or support what everybody has said. A roundabout at that intersection, people don't even have to stop then, at least with a stop sign or a stop light, but a traffic circle, and to think people are going to go 30, 40 miles an hour, which is way too fast, even 20, they won't, trust me. They'll go a whole lot faster. I've dealt with a lot of traffic calming in my neighborhood and those kinds of things, and it's a huge issue. Please reject this report and get some input and come up with some alternatives. I know many of you have been involved in looking at alternatives, and I think we can do it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Meal. I'm a member of Capital City Cyclists. I'm the vice president currently. I live at 1452 Mitchell Avenue, so I'm familiar with Benton and the one-way roads. I'm going to cut this in half and try to hit the main points. Our robust community of pedestrians and cyclists already face major safety challenges on the roads here, part of the tragedy and troubling national and statewide trend. Some 1,105 bike riders were killed by cars in 2022 in the United States, the most ever, according to the NHTSA FARS data. In 1923, 801 pedestrians were killed by cars in Florida, a rate of 3.5 people per 100,000, which is 50% higher than the national average of 2.1. In our community, there are 300,000 people. Are you willing to lose 10.5 pedestrians to car death? Maybe some in a park? The proposed Dempsey Mayo extension further endangers the lives of pedestrians and cyclists in Tallahassee and Leon County due to its design. Between the existing Dempsey Mayo Road and the proposed extension, there are 4 crossings. I have yet to hear what happens with those 4 within a 1-mile span. You have W.T. Moore, you have a retirement community at Westminster, you will have the Dempsey, Mayo, and Miccosukee Road intersection, and then 200 to 400 feet away, you will have a park crossing. The proximity of 4 crosswalks and the potential for heavy use by both students and park users demands that this road be treated more like the similarly designated connector roads of Pensacola Avenue and St. Augustine. Last night in the bike work group meeting, Eric Gooch, manager of public infrastructure for the city of Tallahassee, listed over 10 interventions that they were using on those 2 roads to improve safety. Everything from narrowing lanes to 10 feet, to vertical delineators, to speed tables before crosswalks, to lights that turn red when pedestrians push them so you don't have to guess how fast that car is coming, among others. With the addition of the proposed extension, traffic is going to be much heavier than what's on those 2 roads. We have an opportunity here to look around the state and other areas and make a model solution, not a minimal solution. So it's up to you. Please choose the model and keep our folks safe. Thank you.
Nancy Stevens, to be followed by, oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Thank you all so much. We're going to prepare for our public hearing at 6. We have 7. After those, which I expect those to be very brief, we will come back and conclude our speakers, and then we'll discuss and deliberate on this particular item. Right now, we are in recess. Thank you.